Good afternoon, everyone. As you all know, that today's topic is about the Sangam Age, and here we discuss. Today we will discuss about the political conditions of Sangam Age. So there is a period we can see that around 300 years from the middle of the 6th century AD. The history, we can say, the history of South India is virtually the story of mutual conflict among three powers, and the each power seeking constantly to extend its empire at the expense of its neighbors. The three powers were the Chalukyas of Badami, the Pallavas of Kanchi, and the Pandyas of Madurai. All of them rose into prominence in the 6th century around, but the Chalukyas quit the stage, the phase, the struggle about a century earlier than the two other powers. So their place on the political map being more or less exactly filled from the middle of the 8th century by their successors, the Rashtrakutas of Manikhed, or we can say the Malkhids. So, beside the main house of Badami, the Chalukyas established themselves in two other branches and more or less independent of the main line, the Chalukyas of Lat and the eastern Chalukyas of Vengi. Together with the Gangas of Mysore and Eastern Chalukyas took sides in the conflicts of the three kingdoms, and sometime with decisive results also came from these struggles and conflicts. The Cholas of the Tamil country had practically disappeared except that a line of Telugu rulers bearing their name and claiming a traditional connection with their capital at Orayur that ruled in the area now known as Rayalaseema. So the political conflict was, however, no obstacle to cultural growth. Vast and main-sided religious revival checked the spread of Jainism and Buddhism, and that created a great value of soul-stirring devotional literature and advanced philosophical speculations. So, under the stimulus of this religious impulse, remarkable advances were registered in architecture, sculpture, painting, and music. All these influences overflowed into the numerous Hindu colonies across the sea. The founder, we can say the founder of the Chalukya line here was Pulkesin first. The name probably means the great loin, and he fortified the hill near Badami into a strong fortress in around 543 to 543 or 34 AD, and declared his independence by performing a horse sacrifice. A horse sacrifice, maybe it's an Ashwamedh Yagya. The new fortress stood on a defensible immense within 3 miles of the Malaprabha River and among the hills of the east in Mahakut. 5 miles further in the same direction and on the river in Padakkal. And another 8 miles down the river is Ahol, all witnessing to the age of Chalukyan, these all witnessing the age of Chalukyan ascendancy by their temples and inscriptions. Pulkesin's son was Kirtivarman first, and he ascended throne in 566 AD and expanded the kingdom by wars against the Kadambas of Banwasi and the Mauryas of Concord, and the Nalas of who most probably ruled over a fair-sized kingdom in the region of Bastar and the Jaipur Agency. So the conquest of Concord brought the important port of Goa, then known as Revatidip, into the growing empire. It included into the growing empire, and at Kirtivarman's death, in 597 AD, his son Pulkesin II was too young to rule, so his uncle Mangalesh, that is Kirtivarman's brother, held sway as a or ruled as a regent. Mangalesh continued the policy of expansion and invaded the territory of Kalachuri, uh, Budhraj, whose dominion extended over Gujarat, Khandesh, and Malwa. This campaign was more of the nature of a raid, so that while it brought in much booty, it made but little addition of territory. He suppressed a rebellion on the part of the governor of Revati Deep. Revati Deep, I earlier told the Goa, so and re-established the Chalukyan power in the conquered region. Instead of surrendering the throne, which Pulketion II came of age, so Mangle sought to prolong his rule with a view to handing over the kingdom to his son in due course. Pulkesin therefore left the court and by his own martial powers waged war on Manglesh with the support of loyal friends and killed him in the battle and proclaimed himself as a king in 609 AD. This civil war shook the young kingdom of the Chalukya and enemies began to appear on all sides. So, Pulkesin II soon proved himself and one of the ablest monarch of the line. He defeated the rebel Apiyaka in the battle which he fought north of the Bhimarathi river and received his confederate Govind into favor. Govind was his feudal, so when he offered submission to him, he attacked and overthrew the Karamba capital Banwasi, while the Alupas of South Kanara and Gangas of Mysore were compelled to acknowledge his suzerainty. The Ganga ruler Durvinita gave one of his daughters in marriage to Pulkesin, and she became the mother of Vikramaditya I. The Maurya of northern Konkan were once more reduced to submission by a successful attack on their capital, that is Puri, on the island of Elephanta, the Lakshmi of the Western Ocean. The fame of Pulketion's arms and fear of his growing power of Sri Harsh in northern India induced the Lat or and Malwas and Gurjaras to offer their submission. So, one after another to Pulketion II. The northern frontier of Chalukyan Empire was thus extended at one bound to river Mahi. So, when Harsha sought to invade the Deccan, Pulketion met and heavily defeated him on the bank of the Narmada and capturing many elephants. The only check in Harsha's otherwise victorious career is this. All these achievements were in the first 3 or 4 years of Pulketion's reign. Pulkesin then made his younger brother Vishnuvardhan as Yuvraj and leaving him in charge of the capital. He started on an extensive campaign of conquest in the eastern Deccan. Southern Kausal and Kalinga made their submission first, and the Pishtapura was then attacked and reduced also. In a hard-fought battle on the shores of the Kunal, the Kolar Lake, the power of the Vishnu Kundins was broken and subdued. Then came the turn of the Pallavas. After that, the Pallavas came, and whose rise we must now trace before proceeding further. The political confusion then that reigned in the Tamil country after the incursion of the Kalabras was ended in the last quarter of the 6th century by the activity of the monarchs. The Pallavas the Pallava Singh Vishnu Pallava ruler Singh Vishnu and the Pandyan Kadungon with their capitals at Kanchi and Madurai respectively also. Singh Vishnu was not only suppressed the Kalabras but conquered the whole country of them and up to the Kaveri and even came into conflict with the Pandyas and the ruler of Ceylon. He was a worshipper, devotee of Vishnu, and had the title Avani Simha, the lion of the earth. His portrait of that of his son Mahendra Barman first are found sculptured in relief in the Varaha cave at Mamallapuram, Mahabalipuram, that also known as. He may be taken to have ruled between 575 AD to 600 AD, and he was also followed by Mahendravarman first. Uh, Mahendravarman first was a many-sided genius and great alike in war and peace, and he had many titles such as and he also has many titles such as Matvilas, Vichitrachit, and Gunjabhara. So he was a great builder, a poet, and a magician. He professed Jainism for a time but discarded it in favor of Shaivism under the influence of Appar. Appar was a saint, a renowned saint of South India. So at the beginning of his reign, 600 AD to 630 AD, as in that of his father, Pallava ruler extended in the north up to the up to and perhaps a little beyond the river Krishna and bordered on the kingdom of the Vishnu Kundins. After their overthrow, Pulkesin II sought to measure his strength against Mahendravarman first, and whose growing power revealed his own. His forces penetrated far into the Pallava territory and were not stopped until they reached Polallu, only 15 miles, that is existed only 15 miles of north of Pallava capital. There is a pitched battle was also fought, and although Mahendravarman was able to save his capital, he lost the northern provinces of his enemy, and this was the beginning of the long drawn out conflict between the Chalukyas and the Pallavas. So, after his return around 621 AD, Pulkesin sent Vishnuvardhan to rule over the Andhra country as Viceroy and complete the process of conquest, which the Pulkesin, did not did by about 631 AD. Then, with his brother's approval, he also founded a dynasty of rulers who held sway in the Telugu country for over 5 centuries thereafter. Pulkesin II sent an embassy to Persian court of Khusru II in 625 to around 626 AD, and perhaps this courtesy was returned. And Pulkesin's ambition prompted him to undertake another expedition against the Pallavas in the hope of achieving more decisive results. Mahendravarman had quitted the stage, and his son Narsimvarman first Mahamal say that ruled in 630 to 68 668 AD, and his rule began in 638 630 AD. Pulkesin began his campaign by an attack on the Banas, so who were ruled in the Rayalaseema as feudatory of the Pallavas. After overrunning their kingdom, he invaded the Pallava territory proper and once more threatened the capital. But Narasimhavarman defeated the Chalukyas in several battles, and including one at Manimangala, about 20 miles to the east of Kanchipuram. In these battles, Narsim was ably assisted by a Ceylon prince named Manvarma, who he afterward had to gain the throne of Ceylon. Pulkesin's expedition was thus a failure and was soon followed by a terrible retribution. So, and then Narasimhavarman, encouraged by his successes, and invaded the Chalukya country in force and rapidly advancing to the capital, Badami, and made himself master of the city and its fortress. Pulkesin II must have fallen fighting, and following upon his death, his kingdom was threatened with disruption. So, Narsingha's occupation of the Chalukya's capital is attested to by his title Vatapi Konda and by an inscription that engraved on a rock behind the temple of Mallikarjun Dev in Badami, and during the 13th year of his reign. This was a crisis in the history of Chalukyan kingdom. The feudatories and the feudatories of the empire declared their independence, and even two of the Pulketion's sons who were ruling as viceroys sought to follow the same course which he earlier made. And another son, however, Vikramaditya, aided by his maternal grandfather, the name was his grandfather was the Gang Durvinita, and set himself the task of repelling the Pallava invasion and restoring the unity of his father's empire. He compelled Narsinghvarman to retire from Badami and defeated his brothers and those other feudatories who wanted to divide the empire among themselves. He then proclaimed himself as the king and restored his kingdom in 654 AD around, and rewarded his younger brother Jai Singh Varman, who had stood by him all along and with the viceroyalty, and made him the viceroy of Lata or southern Gujarat. So, the Pallava monarch must have returned to his capital soon after 642 AD. Thereafter, he sent two naval expedition to Ceylon, also to aid the Manvarma that earlier helped him in the battle. Though the second expedition was successful, and the Manvarma put the rival king to death and captured the Anuradhapur. He was later once more driven into exile, and he sought refuge in the Pallava court, and probably after the death of Narsinghvarman. Narsimhavarman is said to have vanquished the Cholas, Cheras, and Kalabras as well as the Pandyas. But no details of these battles are known, so there can be no doubt, however, that under him the Pallava ruler attained strength and prestige, which it had not known since its revival under Singh Vishnu. Singh Vishnu ruled in 575 AD to 600 AD. He was a great builder, and Mamallapuram, the chief port of the kingdom, was greatly embellished by in his day. So the Yangcheng traveled in his kingdom as well as in that of Pulkeson II a little before his expedition against Badami, and has left us an interesting account of what he saw. Narsingh Burman died about 668 AD and was succeeded by his son Mahendra Burman II, who in his short reign came into conflict with Vikramaditya II. So Mahendra Burman was followed by his by his son Parmeshwar Varman first, in whose reign the Chalukya Vikramaditya renewed his conflict. So, and he having secured the alliance of the contemporary Pandya ruler also, the Pandya ruler named Arikesari Parankusha Maravarman first, in who ruled as a ruler of Pandyan in 670 to 700 AD. A word must now be said that about the rise of the Pandya kingdom. It started on its career about the same time as the Pallava, but we know little of the history of its first monarch, the Kadungon, and Kadungan ruled in 590 to 620 AD, and his son Marvarman Avni Shulamani, uh, who ruled 628 AD to 645 AD. There is no doubt, however, that they put an end to Kalabra ruler in their part of the country and revived the Pandya power. The third, Sandan and Jayant Varman imposed his rule on the Chera country and took to himself the title uh, Vanvan. His son Arikesari Marvarman, who ruled 670 to 700 AD, was a great soldier and who fought many battles for the extension of Pandya power. And some of them against the some of battles he fought against the Pallava, the contemporary of them. So it is very probable that he entered into an alliance with the Pallavas enemy, and the Pallavas enemy was at that time was the Chalukyas, Vikramaditya first. That ruler, after rescuing his country from the invasion of Narsingh Varman first and consolidating his power, turned to the task of avenging the fate of his father. The hostilities began even in the reign of Mahendra Varman II, who sustained defeat somewhere in the Mysore country. And early in the reign of Parmeshwar Varman, Vikramaditya advanced to the conquering to the neighborhood of Kanchipuram. So the Parmeshwar Varman had to seek refuge in flight. After that, the Vikramaditya marched to the banks of the Kaveri and encamped at Orayur, where he probably effected a junction with his ally, and the Pandyan, the ally was the Pandya king. From his exile, Parmeshwar Varman gathered a large army and offered battle at Vilandi to Bhuvikram, the Ganga ally of Vikramaditya. The battle went against him, and he lost to his enemy as a valued crown jewel. The necklace, which contained the gem, was the Ugrodaya, and nothing daunted, he managed to send counter expedition into the Chalukya kingdom in order to divert the attention of his enemy. He then met the invading forces in battle at Perugala Nallu, that is existed in 2 miles northwest of Orayur, and inflicted a decisive defeat on them. The expeditionary force returned with much booty after encounters with Vinayaditya and Vijayaditya, the son and grandson of Vikramaditya. So, who had to leave the Pallava territory and retire to his own kingdom. There was some kind of lull in the conflict between the Chalukya and Pallavas during the generally peaceful and prosperous reign of Vikramaditya's son, that is Vinayaditya. Vinayaditya led an expedition into northern India, in which his son Vijayaditya greatly distinguished himself, but that is all they had. So Vijayaditya was the longest reign on of the Badami period, and perhaps also the most prosperous and peaceful. It was marked by great activity in temple building. He was followed by his son Vikramaditya II. In the first years of whose reign, the Arabs who had established themselves in the Sindh and conquered the neighboring lands made a push into the Deccan, but were stopped effectively by Pulkeshin. Pulkeshin was the son of that Jaisim Varman, who had stood by his brother Vikramaditya first. So Vikramaditya second, who appreciated the service of Pulkeshin, that he conferred on him the titles, among the others of Avni Janashraya, that meaning the refuge of the people of the earth, the refuge to the people of the earth. So Rashtrakuta Varman, another feudatory of Chalukyan emperor, also cooperated in the war against the Arabs and earned the appreciation of his suzerainty. The chief interest of the reign of Vikramaditya II lies in his wars with the Pallavas, and he is said to have overrun Kanchi 3 times, which brings us back to the Pallavas. So, after his victory against Vikramaditya first, the Parmeshwar Varman first continued to rule in Kanchi until his death, which occurred around 680, and he was succeeded by his son Narsingh Varman II, Rajsimha. The full name of Narsingh Varman II, Rajsimha, and he ruled in 680 to 720 AD. Uh, his long reign, like the reigns of his Chalukya contemporaries, was marked by the peace and prosperity, and by the construction of large and beautiful temples like the Kailashnath at Kanchipuram and the Shore Temple at Mamallapuram. It was also marked by literary activity. The great rhetorician Dandin, probably spending many years at his court, and Rajsimha sent embassies to China and China and maritime trade flourished greatly in his time. So, and he was followed by his son Parmeshwar Varman II. And Parmeshwar Varman II, the rule of his began in around 720 AD to 731 AD. So, who perhaps won that built the Shiva temple at Tiruvadi, which bears an inscription of his reign, but has been repaired many times over. Towards the end of his reign, Parmeshwar Varman's capital was attacked by the Chalukya crown prince Vikramaditya II and assisted by the Ganga prince Eriyappa, the son of Shri Purush. The Pallava ruler had to purchase peace at a heavy price. His attempt at retaliation against Shri Purusha ended in disaster, and he was killed in battle at Vilandi by the Ganga ruler. The Ganga ruler was the one who seized the royal Pallava umbrella together with the title Premanadi, and after that, the death of Parmeshwar Varman led to a crisis in the kingdom, and there was no one to succeed him in the direction line, and officials of the capital acting with the Ghatika. Ghatika means the college of learned Brahmins, and the pupil chose a prince from a collateral branch. The For that, the Nandivarman II, the son of Hiranyavarman, uh, was the one of the collateral branch, and this becomes clear from the labels beneath the sculptured panels in the Vaikuntha Perumal temple, which narrate the history of the Pallavas from their legendary origin to accession of Nandivarman. They base their choices of Nandivarman on the fact of his being of pure descent, both on his father's and mother's side. So there were apparently other princes of sorts ready to contest Nandivarman's accession. Nandivarman's accession. So one of them apparently lost his life opposing Nandivarman's entry into Kanchi, while another Chitramaya, as seen from the other inscriptions, gained some support not only within the kingdom but of the Pandya ruler as well. In the Pandya kingdom, Arikesari Paramkushava succeeded by his son um Kochadanya, so also called Ranadhir. And Ranadhir ruled around 700 AD to 730 AD. This monarch waged aggressive wars against his neighbors and extended the Pandya power into the Kongu country. He also suppressed a revolt of the mountain chieftain, that is I, who occupied the hilly country between the Tirunelveli and Travancore. So his reign ended about 730 AD, and his son Marvarman Rajsimha first succeeded him. And in the early in his reign, Rasimha espoused the cause of Chitramaya, and after inflicting a number of defeats on Nandivarman, the Pallav Mall besieged him in a place called Nandigram, that is Nandipuram, near Kumbhakonam. Kumbhakonam. So the evil Pallava general Uday Chandra, who encountered the Pandya forces in many battles, raised the siege of Nandigram and beheaded Chitramaya, and thus made the Pallava throne secure for his monarch. He also dealt with other enemies of Pallav Mall, like the Shabar king Udayan and the Nishad chieftain Prithviraj Grah. Not Prithvi, actually, it's Prithvi Vyagra. who were probably acting in collusion with the Chalukya king Vikramaditya II. The invasion of the Vikramaditya around 740 AD, in which his Ganga feudatory Sri Purus cooperated, was indeed the greatest danger that threatened the kingdom of Pallaval in the early years of his long reign. But Vikramaditya behaved on the whole very considerately. Though he defeated Nandivarman and occupied his capital for a time, he did no damage to the city and pleased the people by his liberal gift and returned to the Kailashnath and all other temples the heap of gold that belonged to them. After recording these transactions in a Kannada inscriptions engraved on a pillar in Kailashnath, and thus wiping out the disgrace that had befallen the Chalukyas by the occupation of Badami by Narsimhavarman first Vikramaditya, he withdrew to his kingdom. Towards the end of his reign, Vikramaditya sent out another expedition against the Pallava and it led by his son Kirtivarman, who carried out a successful raid and returned with many elephants and much gold and jewelry captured from the enemy. Vikramaditya's reign was also marked by the construction of new temples, and this is as an activity which was continued by his son also, his son Kirtivarman II, who succeeded him in 744 AD to around 744 AD, and Kirtivarman II and his Ganga feudatory Shri Purush came into conflict with the Pandya ruler Marvarman Rasimha I, who was extending the Pandya power over the Congo country and beyond. So here, Rajsimha crossed the Kaveri and subjugated Malakongam on the borderland between the Tiruchirappalli and Tanjore districts. And he defeated the Chalukyan ruler and his feudatory also in a big battle at Venubai and made peace with them, accepting and he also accepting the hand of a Ganga princess for his son. Kirtivarman II was the last ruler of the Chalukya line of Badami, and his power was speedily undermined by the activity of Rashtrakoot Prince Dandidurg, who was in occupation of Ellora in 742. But the main scene of Dandidurga's early activities lay on the banks of Mahi, Narmada, and Mahanadi. He subdued the Gurjaras of Malwas and rulers of Koshala and Kalingas and the Telugu Chodas of the Sri Salam country. So we see that above all he went down to Kanchi and after a demonstration of force, struck up an alliance with Nandivarman and Pallav Mal, to whom he gave his daughter Reva in marriage, having thus deprived Kirtivarman of his outlying provinces and strengthened his political position. So after that, Dantidurg delivered the final assault on Kirtivarman and sometime in around 752 or 53 AD and proclaimed himself the sovereign power in Deccan. Kirtivarman continued to rule in an obscure way for 2 or 3 years more, but as the later inscription says that in his reign the Rajashiri of the Chalukyas disappeared from the face of the earth. So it means that they have no wealth remained in his privy. To return to the reign of Nandivarman II, he led an expedition against the Ganga kingdom and defeated Shripur and forced him to surrender much wealth and restore the necklace which contained the precious gem called Ugrodaya. Some territory was also taken from the Ganga and handed over to Jayanandi Varman, the Ban feudatory of Nandivarman. This was perhaps about 775, around 775 AD, and Nandivarman also came into conflict with the Jatila Parantak, Nedunjadayan, or we can say the Varguna Maharaj first, who ruled 765 AD to 815 AD. The son and the successor of Pandya Rasim first. The and after that we can say that we can see that the Pallava forces sustained a defeat at Pennagalam on the south bank of Kaveri river around 775 AD. Pallav sought to restrain the growing power of the Pandya king by organizing a confederacy against him, and he entered into an alliance with the rulers of Kongu and Kerala, as well as the Adigaiman of Tagadur. Tagadur, we can say the another name of Tagadur is Dharmapuri. But the Pandyan king was equal to the occasion and won victories in several battles, put the Adigaiman to flight and captured the king of Western Congo with along with the so many elephants, and sent him into confinement at Madurai. And he also annexing the whole of the Congo country to the Pandya Empire. In the course of the war, he also penetrated far into the Pallava country and fixed his camp at Arasur on the banks of Pennar in Todenad. The collision against him thus failed utterly, and the Nandivarman did not succeed in his attempt to check the Pandya. The After that, the Varguna first still other successes to his credit, and he led an expedition into Vinnad, the Vinnad in south of Travancore, and he attacked the strongly fortified port of Villinam and brought the country under his rule. He also waged a successful war against the Eye chieftain of the intervening mountainous country, and who had perhaps been friendly to the ruler of Venard. As a result of these wars, Pandya's sway extended well beyond Tiruchirappalli and into the Tanjore and Salem and Coimbatore districts, and all that lay south was under him. The expansion continued under his son and successor Sri Vallabha, who ruled 815 AD to 862 AD, and who invaded Ceylon in the reign of Sena first. The And he ruled 831 AD to 851 AD and ravaged the northern province and sacked the capital. Eventually, Sena made terms with the conqueror, and the Pandya forces quitted the island. Srimara had next to deal with the formidable combination and formed against him again under the leadership of the Pallavas. And we must now turn for a while to the Pallava history. So, when we took up the Pallava history, after the failure of his plan against Varguna, Nandivarman Pallavmal continued to rule uh, when his plan was not as he made came out uh, uh, for the Varguna. The Nandivarman Pallavmal continued to rule till about around 795 AD, and Pallamal was a worshipper and devotee of Vishnu and a great patron of learning. He renovated old temples and built several new ones. Among the later was the Vaikuntha Perumal temple at Kanchipuram, which contains inscribed panels of sculpture and portraying the events leading up to the accession of Pallamal to the throne. The great Vaishnav saint Tirumangai Alvar was his contemporary. After that, Nandivarman was succeeded by his son Dantivarman. And the rule of Dantivarman started from 795 AD and it lasted in 845 AD. The northern expansion of the Pandya power under Varguna first and Shrimara deprived Dantivarman of a considerable part of his territory in the south, and in addition, he had to face the hostility of the rising power of Rashtrakutas also. It is now necessary to trace the history of that power. Dantidurg died childless and he was succeeded about 756 by his around 756 AD by his uncle Krishna first. He completed the overthrow of the Chalukya power and expanded the new kingdom in all directions. He conquered southern Konkan and established the Shilar family there as a feudatory power. Uh, Krishna first invaded the Ganga country also and defeated the Sri Purus at 768 AD and compelled him to the acknowledge his suzerainty. Against the eastern Chalukya kingdom of Vengi, he dispatched an expedition under the Crown Prince Govinda II, to whom Vikramaditya I, the ruler of Vengi, made his submission without a fight. Uh, Around 769 AD. And Krishna, who built the celebrated Kailash temple at Ellora, was succeeded by Govind II. Sometime between 772 and 775 AD, around, and in 777 or 8, the Govinda cooperated with the Nandivarman Pallavmal in assisting Sri Shivamara II to gain the Ganga throne against the opposition of his brother Duggamara Iriyappa. So the Govinda was an easygoing monarch, and his ambitious and brother Dhruv planned to seize the throne for himself. And Govinda sought the aid of the Pallava and Ganga and the rulers of Vengi and Malwa. But Dhruva defeated them and thus became the king. How exactly Govinda ended his life is not known, and didn't have any evidence or the fact. But Dhruva's accession took place about 780 AD, and his first task was to punish Govinda's allies, the four allies. He caught and imprisoned Shivamara II and levied a tribute of elephants from Pallavmal. He crossed the Vindhyas and drove the Gurjar king of Malavas, the Vatsraj, his name was Vatsraj, into the desert, and he proceeded against Vengi also, and Vishnuvarman IV had to purchase peace by parting with some territory beside offering the hand of his daughter Shil Mahadevi to Dhruva. Dhruva followed up his success in Malwa by a raid into the Ganga Jamuna Doab, where he met and defeated Dharampal of Bengal. Toward the close of his reign, Dhruva abdicated and made Govinda III the ablest of his sons emperor, and this led to trouble soon after Dhruva's death in 793 around AD, when Govinda III had to face the hostility of his disinherited brothers, particularly that of Kambha, the eldest, to gain the eldest to gain the support or from Govinda's to gain the support, the Govinda released Shivamara II from prison, but contrary to expectations, that monarch threw in his lot with Kambha, and single-handed Govinda defeated the confederacy of 12 rulers, but used his victory with moderation, even reinstating Kambha as a viceroy over Gangavadi. While Indra, a young brother of Govinda who had stood by him, was rewarded with the viceroyalty of Lat, But Shivamara II, however, was again put in the prison. And after putting down opposition at home, Govinda III carried his arms into northern India. He inflicted a decisive defeat of the Gurjar ruler of Malwa and Nagbhat II. And on his ally Chandragupta of unknown identity, Malwa was and the Chandragupta of unknown identity also defeated as an ally of that particular ruler. So the Malwa was annexed for a time to Lat, and Govinda proceeded farther north and received the submission of Chandrayudha of Kannauj and his protector Dharampal. On his return in 1802 AD, he fixed his camp at Sri Bhavan on the banks of Narmada, where a son was born to him, the future Amogh Varsh first. From Sri Bhavan, he dashed across the Deccan into the Pallava country in 803 AD, and he defeated Dantivarman, who entered his capital Kanchi, and they received the submission offered by an embassy from Ceylon before he retired to the banks of the Tungbhadra and fixed his camp at Rameshwar Tirth. The rulers of the Vangi, that is Vishnuvardhan IV, and his successor Vijayaditya II, in 808 AD felt the impact of Govinda's power. And Vijayaditya was a great fighter who earned for himself the title Narendra Mrigaraj, the loin amongst the loin among kings. And Govinda III created trouble for him by supporting his half brother Bhim Salukis and rival claims to throne of Vengi. One of the greatest monarch of the line, Govinda's achievement go far to justify the claim of his court poets that after his birth, the Rashtrakutas became an unsellable as the Yadavas after the birth of Sri Krishna. To return the affairs, to return to affairs of farther south, during his fairly long reign of the Pallavas, Dantivarman found himself unable to resist the aggression of the Pandyas from south or hold his own against the Rajputas in north. He was followed by his son Nandivarman III, who who ascended the throne in 844 AD and till 866 AD. He was a much abler monarch than his father, and who organized a strong confederacy against his aggressive Pandya contemporary Srimara Srivallabh. And early in his reign, inflicted a severe defeat on the Pandya at Tellaru in the Vandivash taluk of the North Arcot district. His allies were the Gangas and the Cholas and even the Rashtrakutas. The location of the field of battle shows the extent to which Pandya aggression had developed, and this doubtless made it easy for Nandivarman to find support. The victory of Tellaru was a turning point, and it gave Nandi the permanent title Tellari Rinda, and was followed up by further success, as a result of which the Pandya forces were rolled back into their own home country. And the Pallava army advanced as far as the banks of the Vagai in the heart of the Pandya kingdom. Later, however, Srimara recovered his strength and around 859 AD was able to defeat Nandivarman and his confederates in a battle near Kumbhakonam. Nandivarman III was undoubtedly too great a monarch to suffer by this defeat, and not only did he restore the Pallava power to its former glory, but he was also a liberal patron of literature and the arts in general. And he is also said to have maintained a powerful fleet in a Tamil inscription at Talukapa. in Siam on the opposite coast of the bay. The attached to this oversea connections by mentioning a Vishnu temple and a tank called Avni Naranam after one of his titles. And after that, Nandi was succeeded by his son Nriptung, who had become Yuvraj around 860 AD, and whose mother was a Rashtrakuta princess. Soon after his accession, the Yadav Pallava ruler avenged the defeat uh, of his father at Kumbakonam by a decisive victory against the Pandyas in a battle on the banks of the river. Arishil, a branch of the a tributary of the Kaveri, which enters into the sea at the Karaikal. The Shrimara defeat at Arisil was not an isolated event. Aggressive campaigns, his aggressive campaigns, which had earned for him the title Parachakra Lohala, mm, means the confounder of the circles of his enemies, naturally roused the hostility of his neighbors. And here the Sena second ascended the throne in 851 AD of Ceylon. The nephew of the successor of Sena first had allied himself with the Pallavas and with a pretender to the Pandya throne. He sent an expedition into the Madurai kingdom at about the same time as the Battle of Arsil, and the invasion was a complete success. The capital was sacked, and Shrimara died of his wounds, and his son Varaguna Varman II was enthroned in his place by the Sinhalese commander in chief in 862 AD. In the Rashtrakuta kingdom, Govinda III was succeeded in 814 AD by his young son Amogvarsh, also called Nriptung. The early years of the boy king's reign was full of trouble. There was a widespread rebellion of the officials supported by the Eastern Chalukya that is named Vijayadis II and the Ganga uh, Rachamalla first. Amogvarsh, however, found a loyal ally and a strong protector in his cousin Karka of Lat, and the rebellion was suppressed, and Amogvarsh was secure on his throne before 821 AD. And at no time during his long reign of 64 years can peace be said to have prevailed all over his extensive dominions. With the Eastern Chalukyas, war broke out again about 850 when Gunag Vijayaditya III, the grandson of Vijayaditya II and one of the ablest monarch of his line, made a strenuous effort to free the Vengi kingdom from the Rashtrakuta Kutas, and Amogvarsh won a decisive victory in the sanguinary battle of Vingavalli near Istambulpuri. Istambulpuri is the Kamham in the Kurnool district, whereafter Gunang Vijayaditya submitted the remained loyal for the rest of Amogvarsha's reign. The Ganga era, known as also Nitimarg and Ranvikram, who ruled in 837 to 870 AD, was the son of Rachamalla I, and he revolted soon after and was joined by other feudatories. Amogvarsha's general Bankesh dealt with them successfully, but before he could complete his task, Amogvarsh recalled him to the capital where other disturbances had arrived in which the crown prince Krishna himself was involved, as well as the ruler of Lat, Dhruv I, the son of Kark, who had so ably protected Amogvarsha's earlier. Bankesh killed Dhruv first in the battle and continued the war with his son Kalvarsh and his grandson Dhruv II. Dhruv II was, however, threatened in his rear by the Gurjar ruler Mihir Bhoj, and some of his own kinsmen has had turned hostile to him at home. And he thus thought it is wise to compose his quarrel with Amovers in 860 AD, and it was thereby enabled to thwart the design of the Gurjara and his hostile kinsmen, so that we find him secure on his throne again in 867 AD. So from hereafter, we will take up this topic in tomorrow's lecture or in next lecture. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and any questions regarding the lecture I which I gave earlier. Any questions from anyone, the viewers or the subscribers or the participants? Okay, there is no question. If you have any questions, so please let me know in the comment box. And thank you so much. We will take up this topic from the tomorrow. Okay, thank you.